going to take you over to Home Ranch. Starting at this fence line, that was my Uncle Kim's, and that's where that name Kim came from for my boy.
Yeah.
That was his ranch. He sold it to my cousin, and she just passed away about a year ago, and she gave it to the friends who'd been taking care of her for years. It was about 2,000 acres.
Wow.
It's pretty nice country.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cattle country.
Yeah.
Grazing country. Cattle and sheep. Quite often we see antelope out here.
Really? Oh,
Yeah, oh, that's antelope.
Uh-huh.
That's an antelope right there. Finally see what you're looking at.
Running there, Gene. In the field, just here.
There's an antelope.
There's
He's
horns.
not quite as colorful as those others were, but that's an antelope. Called pronghorns.
Yeah.
Pronghorn.
Yeah. They finally got to where I think I was about 14, about as old as that Mr. Grant's cowboy.
Yeah.
They finally got to where they would let me ride from that ranch over here to see my uncle on here. And I thought I was getting pretty big, being a pretty big cowboy when
Yeah, I bet.
cross there by myself.
Oh, so a 14-mile ride.
Yeah.
That's good going, though. You felt like a big man.
What?
You felt like a big man.
Yeah, I felt like I was getting to be a grown cowboy. Methane gas has been drilling in here. Underlying all this country is coal, and that methane gas is built in the coal fields. Several of my stories are set partially along this Bear Creek country.
Yeah. What's the county called?
Oh, the county. Huerfano.
Huerfano.
Yeah.
Okay.
Huerfano.
Huerfano.
It's Spanish for orphan. And there's a little butte. You'll go right by it when you go up I-25 to Denver tomorrow. You go down in a hill, Huerfano Valley, and you can see that little black stone butte in there, and that's what the county gets its name from. And one thing I have learned the hard way is that a one-legged snow shoveler don't shovel much snow. Cap's Ranch, that's the
Cap's Ranch.
home ranch. The ranch, the fence line goes there, but we'll pick it up on the other end of this line. My Uncle Harry had the ranch for many years, and he enlarged it and whatnot, but and he left it to his son, and the son also enlarged it some. But we always said that it was approximately 60,000 acres, and about half of it lays east of the main highway, the I-25 now, and about half of it lays west of that highway. And I try very hard to write realistic stories about the kind of people that lived here and what they did, and how they lived and all. There were some bad men in here, and they shot some people and all that. But as one old boy told me, said there was a lot more people, cowboys that were killed and crippled by bad horses than there was by bad men. And we're coming around to where all you can see is the east Spanish Peaks. You can't hardly see the west one from here. This ranch still is in a family that still lives here.
Okay.
Now we're back, we are on the Caps Ranch now. Well, this is a county road. So anybody can drive on it. This is a county road. The road we came in on was not a county road at that time. My uncle always ran all the Herefords, but people that got it now are running a mixture of most everything. And that's been a real change in the cattle business. You know, there's hardly any herds that are one breed. They're
Okay.
all mixed up. If you look down in those trees, you'll see a little white.
Yeah.
That was the old home ranch where my mother grew up, and her brothers and sisters. It hasn't been lived in for years. They were pioneers, they sure were. My grandfather was a mason in the lodge, Masonic Lodge. And when they lived out here on that ranch, it's about 25 miles from there into Walsenburg. They say that he hardly ever missed a meeting of the lodge. He would drive a horse and buggy to Walsenburg and go to lodge, and then one of the merchants there, old Archie Levi, would let him spread blankets out on the counters of his store, and he'd sleep there, and then get up the next morning and drive back out here. Well, when I was a kid out here, my uncle had a Ford coupe, and we would come out, we would use that on the weekends to go to town and come back out here. When we were out here, that coupe was put in the garage. We never used it again. We used horses if you wanted to go anyplace. And so I have ridden all this country so many times, horseback and that. That's a Lonesome Pine, and I've got a picture of grandfather right close to that tree with some of the first Hereford cattle he brought in here. In my opinion, is one of the best cattle ranches they ever had in this country, because you've got this good summer country up here, good grass and that, and then you've got that winter country that is much lower, good grass, but and they never fed much of anything, no hay or that, never fed much hay, and they used to feed cottonseed cake for them in the wintertime, and just scatter that cake out on the ground. But anyway, you can see lots of pine trees up here. And I very first started coming out here, I was a pretty small boy, and Uncle Harry had a Model A Ford coupe, and he always just drove any place he wanted to over here, and he bounced me off the roof of that Ford coupe so many times. He kept telling me that he was going to build a saddle horn in that seat so I'd have something to grab. And anyhow, this is what we call the Lamb Meadow, and we used to have our family picnics up there under those pines. and 4th of July picnics and stuff like that. And this was our favorite spot for them. In the spring, this will be covered by wild flags, iris, wild iris, and just be covered and be beautiful blooms. But it's gone this year. But anyhow, this was a special spot for the family.
It must have been wonderful to ride across here.
I feel very fortunate and very blessed. This ranch now is my cousin Sam left it to the Colorado Cattlemen's Association in trust, and it'll never be broken up into. There's a few places going in, but never be really developed as they say. Now, politicians made that law, and more politicians can change it.
Yeah.
There's never been over 1 or 2 milk cows on this place in all these years. My folks lived in town. My dad was postmaster of Walsenburg when I was a small boy. So we lived in town, and then we moved to Grand Junction and lived in town, and I just came back here in the summers. As soon as school was out, I'd either catch a ride or get a bus ticket and come over and spend the summer with them. Lower rear leg there.
Yeah.
That's the ranch brand, and it's H 3/4 box. My Uncle Harry had that recorded many years ago. This is what we call the Arnold Ranch, and the old house and buildings was up in that grove of trees, and that was the barn. But that's part of the ranch. It goes way on up there, but I think we've gone probably far enough. The ranch goes over to that row of hills over there. So all this is part of the ranch. When I was a boy, that used to be some of the best arrowhead hunting country that you could find, the Indian arrowhead, because the Indians used to come and camp along this stream in that spot. I've been knocked down, stomped on, walked on. But boy, I don't know. The kids on the ranch, and we did all this stuff. Nobody ever got seriously hurt till I had this hip thing. So the Lord took care of me most of the time. I don't know what I did to him to tick him off that one time. Now see that tank?
Yeah.
The water actually comes in the springs back up here, and it's piped down to that tank. Now when they first put a tank in there, they brought the pipe and quite high and over into the tank, because we had a neighbor who filled his home barrels for water, hauled it from this spring, and he could drive under that high tank and fill his barrels up. And I could ride under it and take a drink without getting off my horse. I just have not seen the wildlife this year any place, anytime I've been over here. No elk, no bear, no turkey. Sam, my cousin Sam, when CF&I, the Colorado Fuel and Iron Company, owned almost all this land up in here for coal rights, and when they decided to get out of it and sold it, Sam bought this stretch that is in there. He uses this for his winter bull pasture, and it's made a real nice deal, because that way you're driving your cattle all on either the public road or your own land. Developing some building sites on some of the CF&I land around the edges, but Sam's got this canyon both sides to take his cattle up in. My cousin Sam never married, and he, a chipmunk or something, squirrel. He had a skin cancer in his face, and he was almost a recluse. Didn't want to go out or anybody to see him with that. And he lived to be 93, but
Wow.
And he never married. So when he got rid of the ranch, why, that was the end of it. He also bought this 40 acres in here and got that old dance hall. It was a dance hall at one time. The guy that built the dance hall used to have a little beer parlor right here on this corner. And when we were trailing cattle back and forth, I would stop there. The guys would have a beer and I'd have a pop. Company store, that brown building, and then there was a few miners lived all around. You can see some of the mine dump over there. And now this is part of the ranch again. See, the ranch goes on the other side of the highway down here. They had the right to drive the cattle up and under the railroad, under the highway, so that it never got out on the highway with livestock. And this was the ranch. They could just take the cattle across the road, put them in the stockyards, put them on the railroad, and send them to market without hauling them or